Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Darryl Klassen. I'm the lab manager of the 3M healthcare, or in the 3M healthcare business here in London. So I flew in from London North, not from Philadelphia. London, as a few people described this morning, a little bit of background. So I'm not natively from London, but I've now lived in London longer than I've lived anywhere. 14 years at 3M and a few years at graduate school here in London at the University of Western Ontario. So at that time, I was pretty focused on the PhD work and doing the science. Wasn't really all that familiar actually with Ivey. Grew to understand and become familiar with what Ivey was all about and what a respected institution it is. So those are some comments to sort of preface the fact that, from my perspective, it's quite an honor being here to be included in this symposium and to be presenting to the group today. So thank you very much for the invitation. I've got a few slides with a couple of points to share, perspectives of what a new technology company might need from the perspective of a mature technology company. So the first, I'll touch on a couple points, 3 bullet points on the first overhead, or the first slide, is the new company's vision. I think it's incredibly important that the new technology company actually know what it wants to do, what it wants to be. A little bit on growth, a little bit about how we do it at 3M, at least since our technology platforms and our growth objectives and growth strategy since 2006. And then a few slides on improving the probability of success over failure. And then close with a couple of takeaways. So what do leaders of new companies want it to be? I think that that's really important. I can't really emphasize enough how important that issue is, because I think it would give clarity, or gives clarity around how one gets at some of the other critical pieces. Do founders want to own the company, or want to own the company? Are they looking to go public at some point in time? Are they kind of like angel investors in that they actually want to see their technology propagate for altruistic reasons? It's a long road to commercialization that everybody knows. There's been lots of discussion about that today, which is great. But success is likely to be, you're more likely to achieve success if you know what you want to be and you're working towards it. Because it will help with the difficult choices around chasing funding dollars, company control, sales expectations from investors. If you know what you want to be, at least you know how you're going to end up measuring success when you hopefully get to it. It also will help to define what resources you might be willing to invest that would be permanent, and what resources you would be willing to invest that would be more temporary in nature. So now I've got a couple of slides about 3M that aren't intended to be a shameless plug, but it's a little bit about what we do and the good fortune that current employees of 3M like myself and those that work in London at 3M Canada and at our other subsidiaries. We've got a lot of good fortune in that we've inherited a great company, and we continue to build it. But this slide captures the heart of 3M's successful innovation engine that continues to drive the company. It's around technology platforms, so we tend to show it as a periodic table of technology platforms, and they're the backbone of our long-term innovative success across what appear to be rather often disconnected markets. So each element of this periodic table is could be a series of lectures in itself. A week on ceramics, a week on adhesives, et cetera. But to name a few that are relevant to the healthcare business: ceramics, adhesives, films, microbial detection and control. These are resourced with a tremendous amount of expertise in science, manufacturing process and capabilities, regulatory. We're blessed in that we have an infrastructure to support ongoing product development and commercialization. But these are just, I'll point out, these are just starting points now to success. Fortunately, our predecessors in the company figured out how to turn these technologies actually into core businesses using the know-how that they have, and they've built a lot of these core technology platforms actually into successful small companies within the big company. And what we've now done is we sort of overlaid that with an NPI process, so we've formalized how we're supposed to be going to market. So we have a process that cements the to-do list for how we actually commercialize and innovate or commercialize products. So it's my view that this NPI, or new product introduction system that we have, is more of a process platform for commercialization of the do's what you need to do, and accordingly, since it's a stage-gated process, it also should stop us from not doing what we're not supposed to do. So I think that's quite important. And then this slide identifies then we've got the technology platforms, and then there's all of the business capabilities and business competency. So it's not just about the technology platforms. It's now also about the business expertise that we have. Processes for achieving customer understanding so that we don't develop products that aren't going to work in the marketplace. So we understand what clinicians want, what patients want, what dentists want, some global regulatory understanding, quality systems implementation, best practice sharing for marketing and professional services support. You know, these are now part of our DNA through our new product introduction system. And then the businesses identified at the bottom, for those that aren't aware what the 3M healthcare business in Canada consists of. You know, we have a business for skin health, a business for infection prevention services, a business for food safety, for orthodontics and Unitech, health information systems, drug delivery, and then a great dental business as well. So that's the setup to what actually has been our growth drivers actually since 2006. George Buckley was our CEO and came in 2006, and he implemented a program whereby our focus was to grow the core business and then also grow through complementary acquisitions. And the philosophy being that growth comes from maximizing the core and moving into strategic adjacencies with either new products to current customers or current products to new customers. And those are where we should be spending our time. And if you think about, as a new technology startup company, you know, you would probably have what you might consider or want to be your core business, and if you would have competitors of adjacent products, they could be open to partnerships. You know, that could be part of a mechanism for bridging the gap. But that gets back to understanding what it is that you want to do and levels of control, et cetera, et cetera. The area that is problematic is the white space area. You know, the bottom line would be that since we don't have customers in this space, we obviously don't know the customers that we don't have well enough to know what products they need or want, or whether or not we can make products that we can sell to them that we can sell profitably against competition that would know that space better than we do. And that really kind of defines why we're focused on core business and adjacent opportunities. The challenge, I think, then, is that for new companies, for new technology companies that are all in startup mode, everything's white space. And so understanding how you can go from white space to a core sustainable business as fast as you can, I think that's the challenge. You know, how do you get there? You know, and you know, so what I've talked about is really not rocket science, but what it gets down to is how you can figure out how to cover off the gaps as quickly as you can, and depending on what commitments you may or may not have made if you got into the venture capital stage, what commitments you may have made to investors, being able to get there at a rate that gets you to profitability. So how to cover off the gaps? I don't have any magic answers to that, but our new technology, our NPI system, a couple years ago, we had a gentleman named Dr. Robert Cooper, who was a professor at the DeGroote School at Mac. And he's done some good writing on winning at new products. He's got some tools that get to looking at probabilities of technical success and probabilities of marketing success, which I think are really useful. And he has quantified through a look at the literature various companies that tried to take products to market And even if you're not that interested in, let's say, the probabilities of success that he would have generated, if you look at some of the tools and whatnot that he's got, you can look at where you would be in terms of a situation analysis or a state of readiness relative to go to market, and identify what some of your major gaps would be and where you can actually then apply some focus in order to actually overcome some of those gaps. The next piece that I just wanted to touch on is around penetration opportunity realization. You know, so again, there's been some great writing on this. It goes back to Everett Rogers in terms of diffusion, title Diffusion of Innovations, a couple editions of that book. But I think to understand the opportunity, it makes sense to, before you do all of the investment, make sure that you do a deep dive in terms of understanding what the marketplace is all about. Who would be your potential customers? Adoption can sometimes be slow. We heard that this morning. I think I saw ugly was up on the slide. Understanding your potential customers' technology adoption patterns could be a really good way of separating the wheat from the chaff in terms of customers that you want to chase, but who you target for earlier stage commercialization, with the critical mass being the folks that are in the first half of the curve. They're going to define the revenue stream in the early stages of in the first couple of years, actually, of product launch. And that gets to the flip side is understanding who you don't want to chase. You know, spending time actually looking and going after the folks that that were described or termed by Rogers as being, let's see, in the late majority or laggards, or in some cases even Luddites. It's important to make sure that those are not the people that you're actually, the customers that you're looking to either sell to in the early stages, or for that matter, as you're developing a business plan, understanding that those customers might not be ones that you would consider as important to the revenue stream in the business plan in the early stages. So that gets to the takeaways. There's really three of them. You know, understanding the vision of what it is that you want, what you want to be. Trying to fully understand as much as possible the real opportunity, and that may take a bit more time by making sure that you can interface with people that actually know, that are really, really well versed in regulatory and the market dynamics in the area that you're looking to launch in. And then I think if you do number 2 really well, you have a much better chance to do number 3, because you can't execute or you can't get there unless you can organize based on what the plan needs to be. So that's a number of different references and whatnot. I think that there's a lot of good reading that actually sort of maps out some of the way. And thanks very much. And I guess we'll do questions a little bit later, but thanks very much.